industrial land still worth buying in 2026? Sometimes. Sometimes parcels are gold mines, some are financial sinkholes, and some look perfect until the servicing bill costs more than the finished building in Burlington. Industrial land doesn't care about the market, it cares about feasibility. Zoning, servicing, power, environmental risk, stormwater, setbacks, infrastructure. Get one of those assumptions wrong, and you're underwater before the shovel hits the ground. Let's break down how industrial land gets evaluated in Burlington, Halton, and, well, the GTA. I'm Susan, that commercial realtor. I work in industrial and office real estate across Burlington, Halton, and the GTA. Today, I'm walking through the industrial land feasibility framework most buyers only discover after they've written a very expensive check. Owning industrial land is not the same as owning valuable industrial land. Land doesn't automatically go up in value. Functional land does, though. The land market doesn't reward guessing. It doesn't reward it will be worth more someday. It doesn't reward zoning assumptions without feasibility. Land that can truly support development performs. Land that only looks good on a map quietly bleeds capital. Burlington and Halton land behaves differently for a reason. Limited supply, high servicing costs, tight zoning interpretation, rising power requirements, greenbelt constraints, permitting timelines no one controls, stormwater requirements that kill spreadsheets, environmental history that never fully goes away. Winning in 2026 means evaluating the land itself, not just the idea of owning it. This is the checklist that matters, not the asking price, not what someone thinks it will be worth someday. This. 1. Servicing costs. The line item everyone pretends not to see. This one catches almost every buyer, not because it's hidden, but because it's underestimated. Servicing isn't optional, it's foundational. When you underwrite vacant industrial land, you're not just buying acres of dirt, you're buying the cost of making that land usable. That includes water and sanitary connections, stormwater systems, grading and utility corridors, roads, curbs, and sidewalks, power upgrades and telecom, fire infrastructure, and hydrants. In Ontario, municipalities rarely front this infrastructure. Developers and land buyers do. That cost sits with you. There's a very real spread between serviced and unserviced land. In some cases, it can be 2 to 3 times the raw land price just to bring basic utilities to the site. So, when you see land priced at $1 million per acre versus $2 million per acre, that gap is not arbitrary. It often reflects water, sewer, storm, and power costs that need to be funded. If that math is not run before you buy, you're not evaluating land, you're gambling. Power feasibility is number 2. In 2026, land without power is land without value. You must know what's available at the lot line, where the nearest transformer sits, what capacity is realistically deliverable, and whether upgrades are possible within real timelines. Power delays don't slow projects, they stop them. Number 3, zoning and permitted uses. Employment zoning doesn't automatically mean industrial usability. Some parcels allow for warehousing, manufacturing, and logistics. Others quietly restrict outdoor storage, heavy power users, or transportation-related industries. Those restrictions aren't always evident until due diligence uncovers them. They show up when your future tenant walks, which directly impacts demand, pricing, and exit value. Number 4, environmental history. Burlington and Halton include older industrial corridors. Phase 1 is mandatory. Phase 2 can make or break a site. Environmental issues don't negotiate. They don't get cheaper with time, and they don't care how good a deal looked initially. Environmental site assessments are not optional, whether the site is brownfield or not. Number 5, stormwater and setbacks. Stormwater requirements routinely consume 10 up to 30% of usable land. A 5-acre site can quickly become a 3-acre buildable envelope. Setbacks look harmless until you try to draw a building. This is where density quietly disappears. Number 6, access and transportation flow. Future asset values matter here too. Perhaps the access works for you, but you must consider future resale. Buyers and tenants care deeply about highway proximity, truck turning radiuses, controlled intersections, and loading orientation. If trucks struggle, buyers and tenants hesitate. Poor access always gets a discount. Number 7, buildable area and coverage ratios. You must understand footprint, height, parking ratios, and coverage limits. Pricing land per acre without knowing how much of that acreage can be monetized is meaningless. This is where spreadsheets lie to people. And finally, number 8, future utility. This is the real appreciation driver. If the land will not be more useful in 5 to 10 years than it is today, it's not an investment, it's inventory with hope attached. These 8 factors decide whether industrial land compounds value or quietly drains it. And in Burlington and Halton, the margin for error is thinner than most buyers expect. Build versus buy. The math heading into 2026 is clear. This isn't a philosophical decision. This is a sequencing decision. Building makes sense when you need specialization. High power, automation, yard-intensive operations, custom layouts that existing buildings simply cannot support, but only when you can justify the servicing costs, capital outlay, and timelines that come with it. In Burlington and Halton, those timelines are rarely short and rarely predictable. Buying existing buildings makes sense when you value speed, predictable occupancy costs, lower execution risk, and fewer infrastructure surprises. For many users in Burlington and Halton, buying a functional existing building remains the most cost-effective path, especially when inventory already supports their operation. Land only works when customization clearly outweighs risk. If it doesn't, the land is not a strategy, it's a delay with a price tag. After everything we just covered, this might sound contradictory, but it matters. Industrial land can still be a very strong investment. It just has to work. Land performs when it's functional, when it can be serviced without heroic assumptions, when power is available or realistically deliverable, and when zoning supports industrial use rather than merely suggesting it. Location still matters. Land positioned near major transportation routes, labor pools, and supply chains continues to attract demand. Land that doesn't gets discounted no matter how good it looks on a map. Increasingly, land that can support future Industry 4.0 users is where appreciation concentrates. Power capacity, automation readiness, and layout flexibility are no longer optional. They're pricing drivers. Scarcity across Burlington, Oakville, Milton, and Hamilton is real. That scarcity supports value, but only when the land itself can support real industrial use. Functional land continues to appreciate because functional industrial demand continues to grow. The key is not believing in land. The key is knowing exactly what you're buying. This is the tough love moment. There are situations when the correct move in industrial land is not pushing harder, it's declining the deal. That moment arrives when servicing costs wipe out the return before construction even starts. When power can't be delivered within a realistic window, when setbacks and zoning shrink the buildable area to something that no longer supports your business. It arrives when environmental remediation overwhelms the upside, when zoning further limits real demand and future flexibility, when stormwater requirements quietly destroy lot coverage, when timelines extend beyond what the business can tolerate. None of these improve with optimism. They improve only with feasibility or not at all. 2026 is not the year for hoping a site will work. It's the year for certainty. Knowing when to step aside is not a missed opportunity, it's disciplined decision-making. Every land deal I look at goes through the same filter. First, servicing and real costs. Not estimates, not optimism, real numbers. Then power feasibility, what's available, what's deliverable, and on whose timeline. From there, zoning and future use. Not just what's allowed today, but what will still be allowed when the land needs to exit. Then the buildable envelope, because acres don't matter if they can't be monetized. Development charges and permitting timelines come next. These don't show up in marketing packages, but they sure show up very clearly in budgets. Then I look at the 10-year plus exit. Who buys this land later and why? Finally, I test alignment with Industry 4.0 and what comes after it. Power, automation, flexibility. If the land can't support where the industrial demand is heading, it's not positioned to appreciate. Most buyers skip half of this. That's how land turns into regret. My job is to prevent that. If this saved you from buying the wrong industrial land in 2026, subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It tells the algorithm you prefer data over regret and math over expensive surprises. Industrial land only makes money when it works. In 2026, feasibility is everything. Built for business, backed by data, negotiating with bite. I'm Susan, that commercial realtor. Now that you know, what are you going to do about it?